Good morning. For those who haven't met me, my name is Brooke Stevenson. This presentation will highlight a HASS unit on Australia's neighbouring countries and the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander perspectives that have meaningfully been embedded throughout. After the submission of Assessment Task 1, general feedback was provided as to how the unit plan could be improved to be more inclusive of Indigenous perspectives. This included considering when and when not to be explicit about strategies used, for example, yarning circles, and alternative resources when a guest is not available. Furthermore, there are a range of resources available: SBS, ABC, Reconciliation Australia and Creative Spirit, just to name a few, and it is vital that these sources are acknowledged always. This presentation will outline the policies, documents, pedagogies and frameworks that have been included in the HASS unit. Following this, I will highlight how the unit has been further improved based on feedback from Assessment Task 1. Finally, this presentation will emphasise the importance of respectfully embedding Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander perspectives in teaching and learning sequences to enrich overall student achievement. Tyson Yunker Porter's 8 Aboriginal Ways of Learning is heavily aligned with the changes that have been made to this HASS unit plan. This framework places value on the traditional ways that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people know, be, do, value and learn, and as such provides a pathway to incorporating and emphasising these traditional ways in the classroom. This framework will support my Indigenous learners as it includes 8 interconnected pedagogies that can be used across all learning areas within the curriculum to provide authentic, engaging and meaningful learning experiences. This is cohesive with the Australian curriculum, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander histories and culture, which acknowledges the gap between Indigenous students and their non-Indigenous peers. Therefore, the Australian curriculum is working towards addressing this need in an education where Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander students are able to see themselves, their identities and their cultures reflected in the curriculum of each learning area. It is obvious that Indigenous content, perspectives and pedagogies are not limited to the content within this subject. It is a notion that all teachers must make a conscious effort to uphold in their teaching and learning sequences in order to meet the Australian professional standards for teachers. Furthermore, teachers such as myself must be diligent in planning quality teaching and learning sequences to enable students access to an appropriate style of learning that they require, both Indigenous and non-Indigenous students. The frameworks that have been incorporated in this unit look to identify and acknowledge the gap between Indigenous and non-Indigenous students. The original HASS unit plan begins with students exploring the meaning behind Anzac Day. I have added content to this lesson to incorporate Aboriginal history from the time. Personally, I was unaware of the involvement of Aboriginal peoples in the fighting of the world wars and the injustice they received if they were lucky enough to return to country. This is a pivotal moment in the becoming of Australia, and it is not being taught to children. I have altered the lesson to bring to light Aboriginal involvement throughout the war period. This change aligns with Younger Porter's framework, which uses the deconstruct, reconstruct way of learning. This is the introductory lesson of the unit, setting the tone for the lessons to follow. Therefore, it is vital that a culturally inclusive lesson is promoted to students and Indigenous perspectives are embedded in the lessons to enable students to develop a deeper understanding of the history of Anzac Day and the link to Indigenous people's lives then and now. In addition to the overall incorporation of general knowledge and perspectives of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander culture, I have made an informed decision to make a more direct link to Indigenous people throughout the HAS unit. I have undertaken more thorough research to determine if Indigenous tribes inhabited surrounding countries to Australia. Whilst there is not an abundant amount of information available for me to feel confident in teaching students about this, I have referred back to feedback provided and developed a solution. When teaching and learning sequences are focused on Australia's neighbouring countries, I will reach out to local Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community members to promote active community engagement, which has been proven beneficial to Indigenous academic achievement. If this is not possible, I would also seek further support from alternative resources, including ICTs and Indigenous liaison officers within the school, as these individuals are at the heart of school community relationships and partnerships. I am aware of cultural sensitivity when making these adjustments to the unit plan. Most HAS units can be quite confronting for Indigenous students, as sensitive information can be resurfaced from such tragic times in Australian history. However, it is important that students are learning from all perspectives rather than one that privileges white supremacy. It is recommended, therefore, that before the first lesson of the unit, the teacher convide with an Indigenous elder or community member to seek advice on the most appropriate way of delivering such sensitive information. This will ensure all students feel safe and supported in their learning environment. Adjustments have also been made to general classroom practices to be more inclusive of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander culture, the first being yarning circles. The use of a yarning circle is an important process within Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander culture, having been used by Indigenous peoples from around the world for centuries to learn from a collective group, build respectful relationships, and to preserve and pass on cultural knowledge. By using yarning circles as a teaching and learning strategy, students' understanding of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander knowledge and ways of working are enhanced. The yarning circle will be used during lessons where Australia's climate zone is a focal point of learning, as I believe there is much to be learnt from Indigenous culture where preserving the natural resources of their land was a priority. This harmonious, creative and collaborative way of communicating will foster a sense of connectedness amongst students and their own cultural backgrounds. Additionally, a more genuine notion of country and place has been included in the adjustments made to the unit plan. The Australian curriculum, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander histories and culture, is comprised of three notions: people, culture, and country and place. The concept of country and place celebrates the unique belief systems that connect people physically and spiritually to country or place. Focusing on the HAS unit of Australia and its neighbouring countries provides me with the prime opportunity to integrate this notion in my teaching and learning sequences. Lesson 2 involves the exploration of symbols used by Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities to represent different phases of weather, celebrating their spiritual connection to the land. Acknowledging a specific place in a learning phase also promotes a sense of relatedness, allowing students to make a connection to a physical environment and understand that people were and continue to be impacted by tragic events that occurred. Conclusively, embedding Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander content, perspectives, and pedagogical strategies in meaningful teaching and learning sequences is beneficial for all students in the classroom. Indigenous cultural perspectives play an integral role in past, present, and future societal events in Australia. Therefore, it only makes sense that an appropriate inclusion of such perspectives play the same role in student learning. As future educators, it is imperative that we provide each student in the classroom with a safe, supportive, and inclusive learning environment. Fostering such an environment highlights sensitivity towards diverse needs, values, and characteristics of students, families, and the wider community. My engagement in the content of ED4461 has allowed me to develop confidence in my ability to deliver a curriculum that is inclusive of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander students in my classroom.